welcome once again to Daybreak Live Extra. Today on The Big Story, we are confronting a difficult truth, one that continues to slow our national progress and cripple our future. Our topic is titled, The Price of Waste, How Reckless Government Expenditure Undermines National Development. Every year, government after government announces massive budgets, ambitious projects, and lofty developmental plans. But across Nigeria, the reality is painfully visible: abandoned projects, inflated contracts, incomplete infrastructure, and billions wasted without accountability. Today, we dig into the cost of waste, not just in naira, but in lost opportunities, stalled growth, and everyday suffering of Nigerians. I'm Sam Balogun, and thank you for joining us. Government waste in Nigeria is not a headline. It is a cycle, a painful, expensive cycle repeated across generations, from one administration to the next. Projects are launched with fanfare and abandoned with silence. What remains are rusting structures, empty buildings, and unfulfilled promises that continue to drain national resources. To understand the magnitude of the problem, here are 5 major abandoned and perpetually delayed projects, when they began, and what their stagnation means for the country. Let's talk about the Ajaokuta Steel Company in Kogi State. It started in 1979. For 46 years, Nigeria has poured over $8 billion into what was meant to be the nation's industrial backbone. Yet, Ajaokuta has never produced a single sheet of steel. This failure represents lost jobs, stalled industrialization, and decades of wasted potential. You want to talk about the East-West Road in the Niger Delta. The project started in the year 2006. This is 2025, right? After 19 years, the road meant to transform transportation and economic activity in the Niger Delta remains incomplete. Delays and cost overruns have slowed commerce, increased travel risks, and deepened the sense of abandonment felt by residents of the region that feeds the nation. Let's talk about the Mambila Hydroelectric Power Project in Taraba State. It was conceived in 1982, and 43 years later, the 3,050 megawatt power project remains stuck in legal battles, funding issues, and political inconsistencies. A project that could significantly address Nigeria's power challenges remains nothing more than paperwork and promises. You want to talk about the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in the southwest. It was commissioned in 1978. Despite recent effort, the road suffered more than 30 years of abandonment, re-awarded contracts, and stalled work. Its neglect has cost Nigeria billions in lost productivity, increased accidents, and massive traffic delays along one of the nation's busiest corridors. National Stadium Abuja. It was completed in 2003, and neglect began early as 2007. Today, after 18 years of abandonment, the facility built for national pride stands as a symbol of waste, a reminder of how quickly public assets deteriorate without proper maintenance and accountability. This project highlights the true price of recklessness: expenditure, stalled development, wasted resources, economic setbacks, lost jobs, broken public trust. Nigeria's challenge is not the absence of funding or ideas. It is the absence of continuity, accountability, and a culture of responsible governance. Thank you for joining us on The Big Story today. I won't be doing this alone. I've got someone you would always want to listen to when it comes to the issue of Nigeria. The Pan-Africanism in her is top-notch. I have with me in the studio Comrade Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, a good governance advocate, and with her this morning, he's also an activist anyway, and we would love to call her Comrade Katie. She will be helping us unpack what waste really means for the Nigerian people and Nigeria as a country. Comrade Oluwakemi Ademola Aremu, good to have you in the studio.
Good morning. It's so good to be with you this morning.
There's a lot to unpack.
Yes.
You look at the project I just read out, I just spoke about. There are projects that could transform the fortune of some regions in the country. Now, we have a national stadium in Abuja, but we have to play at the Gosul Akpabio Stadium in Uyo, and that is abandoned. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. I can count about 3 or 4 contractors that have worked on that road, And for so many years, over 30 years, the road is not complete. And we have had to what we call reconstruct a road that was never finished. Comrade Katie, where is this coming from? And what is the problem with the Nigerian people, with governance in Nigeria, and the governance of waste, as we put it?
I like it that you mentioned as you reeled and went through the abandoned project, I was almost saddened. But I really
those were just 5.
Yeah, of all
the
of
thousands of projects.
Yes, as a little child, I read about the electrification project of New Busa. It was so exciting, you know, looking at what was done, how people were moved away because this hydroelectric project was going to serve beyond Nigeria. So I'm used to thinking on those skills. So when Ajaokuta started, that was the year I started secondary school, I think, yes, definitely, you know, and it was so discussed in my family. One of my senior brothers started work there. So, you know, it's to let you know that there was much Itapa was supposed to supply, you know. So when you're going through a whole project, it's a whole process. So what I want to point out is that I'm not surprised. Why am I not surprised? The average mind that is poverty as in holistic understanding of poverty, never thinks of consequences. It's not a mind that has a poverty mindset, does not think of the long-term play that will lead to the outcome that is desired. Unfortunately, governance in Nigeria was intercepted by violence. Militocracy is very violent. Because now it means nobody ever was secured again. Even when you were picking a career, you know, in civil service, and it should be a continuum, okay, and then every part should be adding to what the former person has done, that process was roughly interrupted to the point that you could just wake up in the morning and you just hear the bugle and everything has changed again. So what that disruption in the national life has already created a lot of insecurity in office holders. Now, the new trend is for people to want to put their name on everything. They want to start a project, you know, so they're not going into project because
started and completed by so
and they put their name on the plaque. They think by doing so they're immortalizing themselves. No, you're not. You're not immortalizing yourself. People are not stupid. Now, there are so many buildings now everywhere, big buildings, and when you try to assess them, you discover proper jobs were not done, but the outside is fine. Just for the launching project, you know, before the governor will leave office, he has to commission this, you know. So it means that we're not properly educated. You know, look, no man can do beyond their mind capacity. So when you know that, look, we are all alive to build a world. And it's not just to ourselves, it's to the whole world. So that is what is happening. The average person wastes a lot. Waste is based on capacity. You know, there was a time I met a young man. I was much younger then, okay? He was a bus conductor, and he told me, he makes 600 naira per day. And then as a lecturer, I was making 2,500 per month. So I told him, I said, you know the difference between us? Because, hey, you know, I said, the difference between us is that what I can do with 100 naira, you can never do with 10,000 naira. Why? Your mind ability, your capacity to think and utilize. So that is why wastage is an action, or a series of actions, and a process. So it depends on who is handling the resource. And that is why even when it comes to building wealth, it is never how much you earn. It is how you use what you earn. So when you don't understand basic accounting principles, okay, and I put that at the table of accountants of Nigeria, I think they have a lot to do with how money is being managed here. You know, as a child, people would say things like, if you were a scientist, you needed mathematics, and if you were non-scientific, you would need English. And I shook my head, even as a child then, very little girl. Interesting. So if you even know everything in your head and you're a scientist, how will you express yourself if you cannot speak, if you cannot communicate properly? And the same goes for you if you were whatever and you don't understand mathematics. Mathematics is the code of money, proportionality, percentages. So when they want to confuse Nigerians, they just turn to numerology. And it's discovered that people are already lost. because they cannot perceive 10% of the population, 9% of, the theories of proportion in statistics. If you're not conversant with them, it's a language to speak over the people. So the same way, when government you say, oh, well, we want this project, they know they have to present something grandiose with very beautiful feature, beautiful, promises. Jobs will be generated. I keep asking people, the big question is how? Yes, you have to present something.
Is it just about building?
It's not just the building. There came a time now where it's, building projects, physical projects was a means of siphoning. Any normal person knows that the money you used to maintain your clothes is more than what you used to purchase it.
Right.
Yes, you make a purchase, that is like a sunk cost, the first level of payment. Then you have this variable cost that come on. So to maintain the clothes, you'd have to use electricity by ironing it. You have to starch it. Somebody has to wash it. A whole process is involved in maintaining.
It costs more to maintain.
It costs more to maintain anything. And that is why when they say Nigeria has no maintenance culture, it is saddening. Because it means that you don't even understand that the least cost, is the money that is used to purchase. The money that is used to maintain will determine the utility of whatever you're...
And the longevity of the project.
Yes, longevity is also an investment. It means you're involved in maintenance, you're involved in expert advice and, counseling. You see, all these things, consultations must go on. So we have to understand the Nigerian project is about human lives. It is about, it's about all of us. Until we understand that, we're going nowhere.
Okay, there was a video I came across day before yesterday, which actually spurred me to talk about this today. And that is coming from Alhaji Maitama Sule, who happened to be one of the stalwarts in Nigeria, a former permanent representative of Nigeria at the United Nations. He has this to say. Let's watch him say this and see how that means for the Nigerian people. And in the Nigerian context, is this really true?
Okay.
National community and met this gentleman, a professor. This gentleman told him that he knew why we were out. We wanted to get support and sympathy for Nigeria and to explain the federal cause to the international community. And he explained that the international community was not particularly interested in Nigeria as such. All that people were interested in were our resources. And he even went further to say, if we could get robots to exploit your resources for us to develop our economies, we wouldn't mind the whole lot of you being eliminated. But, he said, in the case of Nigeria, there is a difference. And the difference is that Nigerians are very hard-working and very intelligent. And they have got resources, most of which they know next to nothing about. If this country, Nigeria, with all these resources, both human and material, was to have an uninterrupted period of 20 years of peace and stability, it would be another Japan. Because these intelligent, hard-working Nigerians would come to know about their resources, they would use their intelligence and work hard and exploit those resources and develop their economy. A developing economy needs a market, he said. In your own case, you have no problem with the market. Your population is large enough to provide the market that you need. And even without that, the Nigerian market is the entire West African region and beyond. So you will have no problem with the market. Therefore, if you are given an uninterrupted period of 20 years of peace and stability, you would become another Japan, you would threaten our economy, you would be a thorn in our flesh. That was the view of this professor in 1967. And he therefore ended by saying that even after the Civil War, we will not allow you to rest. We will create one problem after another for you. Knowing this, therefore, I feel that in spite of our shortcomings, which I must admit we have, there is a kind of orchestrated campaign against Nigeria so that it may not emerge the economic giant that it is destined to be.
That was Alaji Maitama Sule right there. I want to ask you, Katie.
Yeah.
Is there a foreign agenda against Nigeria that spurred us to that level where we just have to waste everything and anything?
Okay, for a fact, I always say, just like you have a gross domestic products, you have family household values, you also have a level of global domestic product. If it is high for you, it is low for me. So it means that it is my duty to ensure that I manage my resources. Look, this should be taught to children, okay? You have to know. My father told me, you are Oluwakemi Teller, okay? You are a princess of Yoruba land. Do you get it? Even when we're having issues with picking up the language, he will teach you who you are. And how many families tell their children who they are? Unfortunately, I think sometimes 2010, I was discussing with an elderly man, very elderly, strong person. I will not mention his name. I told him, I said, where is the money of Nigeria? He said, that was what he was thinking about at a point. Then he became a leader in Nigeria. As a child, I had an atlas, okay? And in that atlas, I noticed that they showed what resources could be found in many places in Nigeria. As I'm seated here, I own a library, and I have a book that detailed the resources and minerals en masse. En masse, outside Nigeria, outside this planet. Some people know how much resources are en masse. And that's why they were thinking we will be taking trips to those places, and it's a matter of time. What am I saying? If you have treasures in your home, and you're waiting for a stranger to tell you what those treasures are, you are very lazy, you're irresponsible. A portion of your people must devote their time to finding out what they have. It's very simple. I was in primary 3 when they taught me the history of Mungo Park discovered River Niger. I raised my hand. I said, no. The people that were by the river were already living there. But he discovered it as a trade route, so that his country can go interland and explore the resources which are not available in their own place, in those places, and negotiate for them. Is that difficult to know? So if somebody is coming to my tuft because of something that is attractive, nobody ever employs somebody that is worse than them. You are employed to solve a problem. So if you don't understand, young man, young woman, whoever you are, that your parents already invested 20 years in your life for you to qualify for any job, you will treat yourself like you had no future. So that is it. So everybody, look, what you need is to learn to read and to write. What you read is what will determine the quality of your life. What you write is what will help the future. What you speak is what will cause people to think. So why would we cooperate with our enemies? Because if Nigeria is standing, Africa is standing. If Nigeria is standing, every black man will walk in power. Why? 1 out of 4 black people are Nigerians. So we owe it to our race. We are not inferior to anybody. Do you know that some people never even know that Africa is really Akebulan? They've never bothered. They say I didn't study history. That's laziness. Look, you cannot go to school for 4 years and think that is the end of your life. You are alive. You should improve in life quality every day. It is your duty to find out. If it's not important enough for you to find out and invest in it, then it's not important. Anybody can come and steal it and take it away. And that is why waste is a process. It is non-utilization of something that is valuable that has been left to waste or stolen or is lost.
This culture of waste, who should take responsibility?
Fathers.
Past administration.
No,
contractors or oversight agencies, and just like you said.
Fathers. Look, men are created as protectors and providers. So the way we've managed Nigeria is this indirect ruling, okay? The British, when they came, the way to enslave, because we were too many, like you mentioned, the markets. I always say it. When General Sani Abacha stands and say, a nation of 120 million people can never be toyed with. He's taking pride
in the numbers.
In the numbers. And a dwindling population is a shame. Produce children. But when you tell yourself that if I have children, I can't send them to school, it's because you didn't know the history. That in England, when they made school compulsory to reduce population there. And the fewer you are, the less you will consume of what is present on planet Earth. So instead of thinking, let us shrink, you should be thinking, how do we expand? How do I take care of everybody? And that's why I keep telling people, you cannot be wicked to the poor and think your nation will progress. It's not possible. Poverty has 9 beams, pillars holding it straight, straight up. So if you're going to really deal with life, you deal with whatever is destroying the ability of a man to know. A mind that knows is a mind that's free. It's a mind that wants to live and survive. So when you have illiteracy, so that's what I'm saying, we have the problem. For example, this morning, the federal government has announced that they want to recruit 98,000, I think, of military personnel. I just shook my head. France is trying to grow its own force, and they're starting with 3,000. And guess where they are going for the 3,000? Teenagers. Ghana is beginning to grow its own police force because they say we've determined we're going to be ruling by law. They've been at it for some years now. Do you know what they are doing? They are bringing primary school kids to visit the police headquarters. It is the mind of a man that expands and builds the next generation. It's not the confinement and the restriction of another person. Look at it. If somebody even sold it to us and created this amalgamation of clay and metal that we never mix, we can use our strength to build ourselves. Okay? And that was what the youth corps was supposed to do. Now, instead of thinking, I'm afraid of this person, they are not doing things my way, you get to live in their community, and human beings are just human beings. And we all exhibit the same characteristic. We eat, we go to the loo, we excrete. We also respond to irritation. And we grow, and we reproduce. These basic things that kids know in primary school. The next thing is to build the next layer of knowledge. How do you now sustain your life by feeding well? Then junk food should not be sold in primary schools. You see how we are doing behavior as if we are not using our intelligence? Instead, they'll tell you, in fact, there was a board I was on, and I told them, please, why don't we sell fruits in our school? They say, hey, we can't be giving the children fruits, better they buy biscuits. But the biscuit is not healthy, unless you want to deceive yourself. The other part of it is, instead of to maintain your health by feeding well and thinking right, you'd rather take one pill and throw it in your mouth. So are these pills harbingers of death or elixirs of life? Do you get what I'm trying to say? You cannot say, okay, you know what clothing is for. Clothing is for you to protect your body against the weather. And God's so good because the weather will keep changing for the human beings. We have options, okay? Now, you decide to expose your body in a nation that is very hot in the tropics. What are you doing? It means we are not applying our mind to whatever we're doing. So it's the same attitude. If you would not preserve your life, you can't preserve anything else. And if somebody is saying we need peace and stability, there are 2 kinds of peace, okay? I'm referring to what he said. You have the positive peace and the negative peace. Okay. We definitely, as a nation, like negative peace. Negative peace is silencing people from expressing themselves. My expression of myself is unique to me. It is not in any way affecting your life, but we will not let people live. What is wrong? If I want to dance, I will dance. If I want to shout, it is my shout, it is my dance, so long I'm not crossing to your own space. So we don't value independence. And if you look at Jung said, the beginning of freedom is individuation. That is the individual thinking, my life is important, and I value it, and I'm willing to do the work that will help me live a quality life. I'm willing to dispose. Everybody gets 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days of a week, every human being. Now, if I spend my time not digging my own cistern, not looking at my life, gossiping about everybody, criticizing and blaming others, I'm lying to myself. So a nation of liars. That is what we do. We hardly face the truth. We don't look. Now, let me tell you, it's not a 5-tribal world. The first tribe says, life sucks, you are my problem, It's because you're not worshiping my God. That is why we have trouble. No. God gave brain and hands. They are meant for something. Yes, so if I now decide, no. Okay, I want you to go to heaven. What's your business with my heaven? For crying out loud, it's my life. Okay, and I keep saying it. People have a right to go to hell by being created. Do you get it? That's why the options are before you. So when you now make my life your business, really, is your life enough for you? These are the problems. Then the other part is the educational process. The education is equipping the mind of man to make a choice, a rational choice, a logical choice. Now, you're very temperamental, you're very emotional, you think I'm your business. You see how we're going about it. But when you come to the second level of people, humanity, they go like, look, please, my life sucks. I need more education. I need more information. I need to, you begin to seek to build yourself. And if you're going to get education, you will invest in it. It will cost you something.
Okay, just before we go, let me ask you this. How does reckless spending affect Nigeria's borrowing habit and the debt profile?
One, there was a time when a man paid our debt, begged us out of debt and everything. And like I said, they were looking at us, okay? So it's very simple. If you keep involving yourself in grandiose projects, pretending they are going to be fixed assets, okay, and you are not going to put anything into current, working capital, people that are in accounts, you understand this. Working capital that you have to keep is 3 months of money to pay and maintain what you have if you're going to start. If you don't have that cash at hand, forget it, you're not liquid enough for the business to survive. So when we come up with projects, I say, let them know that I was the one that built this building, okay? Unlike what we had in the past, when we had real leaders in Nigeria, the Cocoa House project. It was as a result of the profit of a venture. So it is a circular economy. Okay? But what we have now is packaging. Nothing inside. The outside is very beautiful. When you open a very big box, you find a very tiny cake. If it is true cake, if it's not chin-chin. Do you get it? So we've gone to that way. Let the child go to school and come up with a piece of paper. It does not matter whether in the process of undergoing that training, the mind is conceiving how to create jobs. In fact, if you've been to the university, you are really an entrepreneur in the making. We're supposed to create jobs. So nobody will leave you to build a great nation. Nobody, you'll fight. Life is about war. It is war against yourself. You want to sleep, you keep awake and do your work. You want to put it down and say, no, let somebody else do it in the next generation. No. Let me sacrifice for the future.
Do you think what we currently experience in Nigeria, which is wasteful expenditure, do you think it is it contributes to underdevelopment more than corruption itself?
The corruption, that is why all these things are interdependent, okay? The corruption of the mind, that is what corruption is the corruption of the mind that corrupted the system. So if you are into that process, you're not into development. Positive peace is that we have a balance of justice. We have processes of handling grievances and disputes. The judicial is transparent. When it comes to economics, there's accountability. For example, if I make 1 kobo extra today, I tell my children immediately, because I'm trying to get their mind to trust in the information and the process of how money is made. Some people cannot even tell their children their birth date. Neither can they tell them how much they earn. Do you know it is that terrible? So what you're seeing as the final expression of the Nigeria is the microcosm, the family. That's why I said the men. Okay, if the men are tuned because they have more time, that's the truth. If they are tuned to maintaining the family economics and investment, it will show. Because when they go to meetings and they are in committees, their mind will be able to go through the, their mind will be able to go through the sequential process of
leadership.
Yes, of leadership. So it begins at home.
So should project completion and what we call continuity be made an obligation for leaders, especially those who are coming into power?
I must commend the governor of Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde. When he came up, he went about trying to complete projects, though he has left the shopping complex Agbowo alone. But I don't know whether he's still going to do it. I hope he's going to do it. What he did was to look at abandoned projects around, and he's on Circular Road now, trying to complete those things, not bothering whether it's after him. That is how to do it. Governance is a continuum. You'll be there for 4 years, 8 years max. So can you change your world in 8 years? So we should be able to hand the baton to the next person. That is why the relay race is usually the longest race. It's not the short burst of 100 meters. It is the maintenance of the system. So until we change our mind, we can't see anything on the ground. So the external enemy is not as terrible as the internal enemy. Because if we're determined to take advantage of what is great about everyone in Nigeria, not pushing down other tribes and thinking you're better than anybody, then we're on our way to greatness. We still have a choice. Even today, we still have a lot of choice because nobody can play with that population. more than 250 million people. In fact, if you see the list of the better economy projected for the next 4 years, Nigeria is up there. Nigeria is a veritable economy. So like you said, let's begin to buy Nigeria. Nobody will leave you to buy Nigeria because China would have lost a very big market if they let us buy. So Nigerians, we have to make a choice. I love Nigeria. I live for Nigeria. And I work for Nigeria. Are you?
Thank you, Comrade Katie, for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank
It's
you
been a
for
wonderful
having me.
session with you. And we do hope to bring you back someday to talk extensively about the country Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. As we
Thank you
wrap
for
up
having
today's big story, one thing is clear. A nation cannot grow when wastage becomes a tradition and accountability becomes optional. Every abandoned project is more than a failed structure. It is a lost opportunity for growth, a burden on taxpayers, and a reminder of the urgent need for reform. Nigeria must break this cycle with transparency, genuine political will, efficient project monitoring, and continuity across administrations. The country that redirects wasted billions into real development that improves lives. This has been The Big Story. Thank you for staying tuned with us on this show. Daybreak Life Extra continues. And up next is Trend Watch. Thank you for being a part of the show. Samson Balogun is my name.